And the question really with the NBA is, should Kevin Durant return to the court? And my thought, my stance, absolutely not. To me, no circumstances justify his return to finish out this season if the 2019-2020 season is resumed and completed during the summer. All this speculation first started with Nets general manager Sean Marks earlier this week, was asked at a conference if Durant could return when the season returns. And his quote was, "That's the $110 million question. In all seriousness, we try not to talk about his timeline a lot," end quote. So he was asked, could Kevin Durant return to the court if play resumes, let's say in July? Teams had about 15 or so games left on their schedule, give or take. Could he return for those 15 games? The Nets currently are in a playoff spot. Could he return and go to the playoffs? That's the $110 million question that Nets general manager Sean Marks, that was his answer if Kevin Durant could return. And looking at the situation, the risks far, far, far outweigh the reward of having Kevin Durant return to the court this summer and try to finish out the season and try to get a championship. First of all, Kevin Durant's rehab, right? It's been going well. We've seen some videos back in February, back in early March when teams were still allowed to play games and practice. Show some videos of Kevin Durant doing some shooting, doing some light running. His rehab, for everything you hear, was progressing pretty nicely. He was at least on schedule, maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule, coming off that blown Achilles in the finals last year. But with this pandemic, right, with the league shutting down in mid-March and basically almost having going on 2 months now of no games, no practices, he's been unable to train with trainers on the court. He's been unable to have them monitor his movements. Now, I'm sure they're doing some sort of Zoom or Skype workouts with him in his house, but it's nowhere close to the same rehab and intensity that he'd be doing if the season was still underway with no coronavirus to stop it. So he's not in game shape. His rehab cannot be on track as it was, again, if everything was normal. And their talk is that even if, play does resume, they're going to have a 3-week training camp so players can get back into shape. Because for the most part, some players have, gyms, some players have courts, but others don't. So there's a wide gulf of those who are still training, still staying in shape, and those who need basically another training camp in order to get in shape to finish off the year and make the playoffs. So I don't think a 3-week training camp is enough for a guy coming off of a blown Achilles who hasn't really been able to rehab and get the same intensity that he has if the season was still going on. So right there, you have Kevin Durant not in shape, not in game shape, unable to continue the same rigorous rehab that he's been able to do when the team was together and practicing. Not to mention, let's just say he was in game shape, right? Let's just say for all intents and purposes, he was able to, when training camp resumes, if the season does resume, let's say he was able to do some 3-on-3 work, 5-on-5 scrimmages. But by the end of the 3-week training camp, he was healthy enough at least to get on the court and play without risk of injury again. Easing him along in the playoffs is a very tough ask. You're not just going to throw him out there and have him play 40 minutes a game, coming off of a year off. So even if he was healthy enough to play, he's going to have to be on some sort of minutes restriction. And that is so hard to do, so hard to implement and carry out in a playoff game when the season is on the line, that let's just say, for example, Nets are in a playoff game. Kevin Durant, let's say his minutes limit is 20 minutes for this game, right? Plays, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes each quarter. And let's say midway through the fourth quarter, he hits that 20-minute mark. 20 minutes, out of the game. What if the Nets are up by 3 or down by 3? What if it's a close game, an elimination game, or a chance to close out the series? It's going to be so hard to tell Kevin Durant to get off the court, sit the rest of the game out as a competitor, because you have a 20-minute mark that you reached, and you cannot help your team either finish off a team and advance in the playoffs or avoid elimination and keep the season going. And it's going to be very tough to implement a minutes restriction and carry that out when there's so much on the line in the playoffs, when the intensity ratchets up so much more, that you can't really ease Kevin Durant along. Now, we saw the Warriors. We saw Steve Kerr try to ease him along in the finals game. He played way more minutes than I thought in the first quarter, and then boom, comes out, pops the Achilles for real, and he's done. So it's a very tough ask, and it's an impossible situation to try to put a minutes restriction on a player of his caliber and expect him to adhere to it and expect the team to adhere to it when there's so much on the line, when there's so much at stake in the playoffs. And finally, the Nets aren't one player away from a championship this year. The Nets aren't on the fringe of taking down the Milwaukee Bucks or beating the Boston Celtics or eliminating the Raptors, or then if they come out of the East, beating the Lakers, beating the Clippers. They're not that good. I mean, they're 30-34. They're 7th in the East right now. They're half game up on the Magic. They are 1 game away from being in 8th place and going against the Bucks in the first round. They're not going to have Kyrie Irving for the playoff run, who got surgery on his shoulder, so he's going to be out. So you bring Kevin Durant back, it's going to be him, just him. And is it really worth bringing Kevin Durant back, risking him playing to face the Bucks in the first round and lose, face the Raptors in the first round and lose, face the Celtics in the first round and lose. I don't see where's the reward. Maybe you win a game or two, but even still, like, you're holding your breath every time Kevin Durant goes up and down the floor. That doesn't injure himself or doesn't rush back too soon. The Nets aren't that close to a championship. They're not one player away. They're not on the brink of hoisting that championship and winning the finals. And not to mention, even when the Nets last summer, right? You have Kevin Durant signing, you have Kyrie Irving signing. The 2019-2020 season was always just kind of having your cake and eating it too. It was always icing on the cake, right? Because you knew you were going to have Kevin Durant the entire season, so it's going to be the Kyrie Irving show. And obviously, with his injuries, you've gotten way less than you thought. But 2020, 2021, that was always the year for the Nets. They really had 3 years when they signed KD and Kyrie. And that's starting in 2020, 2021. So why risk that? Why risk your 3-year legitimate window that you have with these two star players to try to get lucky, try to have a miracle happen, and you win the finals or even win one playoff series by bringing Kevin Durant back if the season was to resume during the summertime and try to, again, have a miracle happen when they can win. Don't risk the future. Don't risk next year when your window is legitimately open. We're going to have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and the Nets hope 60, 65, 70 games next year. Why risk it? So if I was the Nets, I would absolutely not bring Kevin Durant back under any circumstances this year. Wait until October when the 2020-2021 season starts off. Wait until December. If the season is pushed back to around Christmas time and the next year doesn't start until Christmas, fine. There's no reason to risk it now because the reward of a championship is not worth the risk. And there's ton and way more risk of bringing Kevin Durant back, trying to ease him through the playoffs, and again, have him on a minutes restriction where you get the fans frustrated, Kevin Durant frustrated, the team frustrated. So he can't play a full game. He can't play at his normal level because you're still trying to ease him back in the playoffs, which is never an easy task and almost never goes well. Sean Marks, please, please, please do not consider bringing Kevin Durant back. Even if he says he's healthy and wants to play, do not do it. Wait until next year. The risk is far greater than rewards. So last week, or I should say on Monday, we gave you the 4 most boring teams. The 4 teams that you really have to be very bored and have nothing going on in order to tune in and watch their game. That's the Jaguars, the Bears, the Panthers, and the Lions. So we'll give you 28 through 25 here. So at number 28, it will be the Tennessee Titans. Now, obviously, despite Ryan Tannehill leading the team to the AFC title game last year, and he was great down the stretch, he was not getting the playoffs. The 2 wins they had against the Patriots and against the Ravens, he threw for under 100 yards. I think it was combined 150 yards he had in 2 playoff games. So the style is not really that appealing. The style is not exciting, explosive. It is a wear you down, grinds it out, physical sort of style that is effective if you're playing keep away, like especially from that Ravens offense. They really wore them down and did a great job keeping the ball away. But is it aesthetically pleasing? Is it fun to watch? Do you sit down and watch a Tennessee Titans game and say, oh man, I can't wait to see this offense go to work? Not really. Derrick Henry's a powerful back. He's a huge back. But he doesn't really break too many big runs. It's like almost death by 1,000 paper cuts where he just keeps on running into you. And then eventually you get tired of tackling him. That's how the Titans were able to be so successful down the stretch last year. I'm worried 2019 was almost a flash in the pan. I have my serious concerns and doubts of Ryan Tannehill, that he can do what he can do down the stretch again, consistently, for another 3 or 4 years. And again, you saw in the playoffs, that's what Tennessee is going to be. Physical defense and try to wear you down. It's not exciting. It wins games, and they could be, again, I think they'll be good again this year. But is it exciting? Is it fun to watch? No. And that's what this is about. This is not a ranking of who I think is going to be the best team. This is a ranking of storylines around them, watchability, excitement. Not every good team is exciting. Last year, the Patriots were a pretty good team. Were they exciting? Not really. That offense was tough to watch at some point. So we're talking about excitement. We're talking about wow factor. And they can be a bad team, but a bad team can make it exciting. The last year, the Buccaneers were an exciting team because you had no clue what Jameis Winston was going to do. You're going to see the worst interception you've ever seen. He's going to follow it up by one of the best touchdown passes you've ever seen. Buccaneers were not good last year, but it's exciting. It puts you to the top of the list. Number 27, the Washington Redskins. Now, there are a few storylines here I think will be interesting. I think Dwayne Haskins, see how he develops in year 2 under a new system, I think will be something interesting to watch. This will be his first year as a full-time starter. So I'm excited to see if he can, 1, beat out Kyle Allen, 2, see how he develops, and 3, if he doesn't play that well, how quick is the hook from Ron Rivera to put in his guy, Kyle Allen, who was his quarterback for most of the year last year when Cam Newton went down, so he knows what he has from his days in Carolina. And if they're not completely sold on Dwayne Haskins, and they legitimately think Kyle Allen could be their future quarterback, I'd love to see how quick that hook is. So that is something to watch there in Washington, how Dwayne Haskins develops. And not just that, Their defensive line is going to be fun this year. That was probably their most loaded and most skilled position they had on the team. And they just went out and added Chase Young. No big deal. Best player in the draft. So that D-line is going to be a lot of fun to watch because they're going to be getting after the quarterback, wreaking havoc both in the interior and on the edge. And I really can't wait to see Chase Young because unlike pass rushers in the past or unlike top picks, usually when you're getting picked high, that high, especially top 5, you're going to a team that is depleted at that position group that needs a lot of help. And for the most part, you are the main guy, which means teams game plan to take you away. If Chase Young, let's say, went to the Bengals have 0 pass rush. Every offense each week would be focusing on minimizing Chase Young because he's really the only threat there. Now, you can't do that with the Redskins. They have a great front 4. They get pressure on you. So you can't just game plan and take away Chase Young because they'll beat you on the inside with Jonathan Allen, they'll beat you on the outside with Ryan Kerrigan. Montez Sweat, who they drafted last year, they have some skill already in Washington on the defensive line. So it's going to be fun, exciting to watch. Now, will they be good? Probably not. Dwayne Haskins is more going to be exciting to see if he plays good or not. He's not that exciting of a player, especially what you saw in year 1. But it's more the intrigue is can he keep his job and can he develop? Because all offseason you see him training, him hyping himself up, talking about he's blocking all the noise when the Redskins were rumored to possibly be thinking about drafting Tua Tagovailoa. And the weapons that Dwayne Haskins is throwing to, not blowing you away. I like Terry McLaurin, his teammate at Ohio State. They've had a nice connection that rookie year. Outside of him, there's not too much there that jumps off the page that gets you excited to see. So the Redskins have some storylines. I especially think their defense line will be fun. But to me, they are still number 27 out of 32 on the most intriguing teams. I have the Buffalo Bills at number 26, and here's why. The skill position, they're improving. I like the Stephon Diggs trade. Him and John Brown will be a nice pairing. I like what they have in their running back room. And their tight ends are skilled. So I think for the most part, the skill positions are solid. But Josh Allen's erratic play, man. Let me tell you, it makes it hard to watch. And he's not going to give these players room to show their skills because he's too inaccurate and doesn't put the ball in places to where these players can catch it and run and actually show what they got. Last year, the Bills were 21st in pass attempts per game. So they were in the bottom third of the league in terms of how many times they threw the ball. Josh Allen last year, among full-time starters in the NFL, was last, dead last in completion percentage. And the Bills as a team, specifically Josh Allen, averaged below 200 passing yards per game. What does this mean? Selfishly, playing receiver in high school, I more prefer teams throwing it to be more exciting than ground and pound. So I favor teams that air the ball out, have exciting dynamic quarterbacks that can really just have big arms, make impossible throws, and move the ball primarily through the air. The Bills do not do that. The Bills are a fundamentally sound football team. That's what I'll call them. They don't do many things to kill them. Defensively, they are very good and only improving under Sean McDermott. A great defense and a great run game. You do win games that way. Ask the Tennessee Titans. One game short of the Super Bowl. Really a half short of the Super Bowl. Jaguars did the same thing back in 2017. You can do it. The blueprint is there. When more teams are throwing the ball, you can win games running the ball and playing great defense. So I'm not knocking the Bills. I'm not saying they're not going to be bad. But at least to me, I don't get excited by watching the Bills' style of play. I don't get excited by watching Josh Allen barely complete half of his passes, missing wide open guys, throwing over receivers' heads. I like the run game that Buffalo has. I like the defense that Buffalo has. Is it going to be exciting? That's where I can't say yes. That's why I have Buffalo at number 26. I think it'll be a good team, not an exciting team. Number 25 will finish out these rankings. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, most of the intrigue, most of the storylines surrounding the Steelers heading into 2020 is going to be around Big Ben and his health. You know, he's missed games and has not played a full season in 3 of the last 5 years. So majority of the time, he's missed some games at some point. So if he gets hurt again, which you saw in 2019, his backups are awful. Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges, no thank you. I'm not watching them every Sunday. So if he goes down, that watchability goes to the tank because it was hard to watch last year. Not to mention the skill positions they have don't really blow you away. I like Juju Smith-Schuster. Is he number 1 wide receiver? I'll lean towards the no. I think he's a great 1A, a compliment for sure. Can he take this wide receiving core on his own? Can he be the standout guy? Right now, I would say no. Tight ends are I like James Conner. He can't stay healthy. Benny Snell, I think, was a nice improvement last year running back. But am I tuning in week in and week out to watch these guys? I'm not. And especially if Big Ben goes down, which, again, he hasn't been able to stay healthy the last 5 years. So the Steelers, to me, even if Big Ben is healthy, I'm not really blown away. I'm not itching to watch the Steelers because I think also part of their lack of excitability, their lack of intrigue, is because I think we know they're going to be good. Mike Tomlin has had 0 losing seasons in his career as the Steelers head coach. And he played basically the entire season last year with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges as his quarterback. It's going to take a disaster, an apocalypse, to have a Steelers have a losing record. So they're going to win games. Don't get me wrong. But I think almost that predictability doesn't really make it exciting. You know, there's not much variance on what you're going to get with the Steelers. And the biggest question mark is going to be the quarterback's health. I'm going to look at that as a positive to be an intriguing, must-watch sort of thing heading to 2020. That's why I have the Steelers as the 25th team on my rankings.